The complete works of Swami Vivekananda, Volume 3, Section 5, Reports in American Newspapers. India, Her Religion and Custom. Salim Evening Newspaper, August 29, 1893. In spite of the warm weather of yesterday afternoon, a goodly number of members of the Thoughts and Work Club with guests gathered in Wesley Chapel to meet Swami Vivekananda, a Hindu monk now traveling in this country, and to listen to an informal address from the gentleman, principally upon the religion of the Hindu as taught by the Vedas or the sacred book. He also spoke of caste as simply a social division in no way depends upon their religion. The poverty of the majority of the masses was strongly dwelt upon. India, with an area much smaller than the United States, contains 2,300 millions of people, and of these 100 millions on wages, averaging less than 50 cents per month. In some instances, the people in whole district of the country subsides for months and even years wholly upon flowers produced by a certain tree which, when boiled, are edible. In those days, Swami Vivekananda's name was split in various ways by the USA newspaper, and the reports were inaccurate, mostly owing to the novelty of the subjects. Vedas Mohu. In other districts, the men ate rice only. The women and children must satisfy their hunger with the water in which the rice is cooked. A failure of the rice crop means famine. Half the people live upon one meal a day. The other half knows not whence the next meal will come. According to Swami Vivekananda, the need of the people of India is not more religion or better one, but as he expresses it practicality, and it is with the hope of interesting the American people in this great need of the suffering, starving millions that he has come to this country. He spoke at some length of the condition of his people and their religion. In course of his speech, he was frequently and closely questioned by Dr. F. A. Gardner and Reeves S. F. Nopes of the Central Baptist Church. He said the missionaries had fine theories there and started in with good ideas but had done nothing for the industrial condition of the people. He said Americans, instead of sending out missionaries to train them in religion, would bring better send someone out to give them industrial education. Asked whether it was not a fact that the Christians assisted to the people of India in the times of distress, and whether they did not assist in a practical way by training school, the speaker replied that they did it sometimes, but really it was not to their credit, for the law did not allow them to attempt to influence people at such times. He explained the bad condition of women in India on the ground that Hindu men had such respect for women that it was thought best not to allow her out. The Hindu women were held in such high esteem that they were kept in seclusion. He explained the old custom of women being burned on death of her husband on the ground that they loved them so that they could not live without the husband. They were one in marriage and must be one in death. He was asked about the worship of idols and throwing themselves in front of the judgment juggernaut car, and said one must not blame the Hindu people for the car business, for it was the act of fanatics and mostly of lepers. The speaker explained his mission in his country to be to organize monks for industrial purposes. that they might give the people the benefit of this industrial education and thus alleviate them, improve their condition. This afternoon, Vivekananda will speak on the children of India to any children or young people who may be pleased to listen to him at 166 North Street. Mr. Woods kindly offered her garden for that purpose. In person, he is fine-looking man, dark but comely, dressed in a long robe of a yellowish red color confined at the waist with a cord, and wearing on his head a yellow turban. Being a monk, he has no caste and may eat and drink with anyone. Next, Daily Gazette, August 29, 1893. Raja Swami Vivekananda of India was the guest of the Thought and the Work Club of Salim yesterday afternoon in the Wesley Church. A large number of ladies and gentlemen were present and shook hands, American fashion, with the distinguished monk. He wore an orange colored gown with red sash, yellow turban, with the end hanging down on one side, which he used for a handkerchief, and Congress shoes. He spoke at some length of the condition of his people and their religion. In course of speech, he was quietly and closely questioned by Dr. F. E. Gardner and Rev. S. F. Noble of the Central Baptist Church. He said the missionaries had fine theories there and started in with good ideas, but had done nothing for the industrial condition of the people. He said Americans, instead of sending out missionaries to train them in religion, could better send someone out to give them industrial education. Speaking at some length of the relations of man and woman, he said the husband of India never lied and never persecuted, and named several other sins they have committed. Asked whether it was not a fact that Christian assisted the people of India in times of distress, and whether they did not assist in the practical way by training school, the speaker replied that they did it sometimes, but really it was not to their credit, for the law did not allow them to attempt to influence people at such time. He explained the bad condition of women in India on the ground of that Hindu men had such respect for women that it was thought best not to allow her out. The Hindu men were held in such an high esteem that they were kept in seclusion. He explained the old customs of women being burned on the death of their husband, on the ground that they loved them so that they could not live without the husband. They were one in marriage and must be one in death. He was asked about the worship of idols and throwing themselves in front of the juggernaut car, and said one must not blame the Hindu people for the car business, for it was the act of fanatics and the most of leper. As for the worship of idols, he said he had asked Christians what they thought of when they prayed, and some said they thought of the church, others of the God, and now his people thought of the image. For the poor people, idol was necessary. He said that in ancient times, when their religion first began, women were distinguished for spiritual genius. He said that in the ancient time when the religion first began, humans were distinguished for spiritual genius and great strength of mind. In spite of this, as he seemed to acknowledge, the women at the present day have degenerated. They thought of nothing but eating, drinking, gossip, and scandal. The speaker explained his mission in his country to organize monks for industrial purpose, that they might give the people the benefit of this industrial education and thus to elevate them and improve their condition. Salim Evening News, September 1st, 1893. The learned monk from India who is spending a few days in the city will speak in the East Church Sunday evening, 7:30. Swami Vivekananda preached in the Episcopal Church at Aniquisquam last Sunday evening by invitation of the pastor and Professor Wright of Harvard, who has shown him great kindness. On Monday night, he leaves for Saratoga, where he will address the Social Science Association. Later on he will speak before the Congress in Chicago. Like all men who are educated in higher universities of India, Vivekananda speaks English easily and correctly. His simple talk to children on Tuesday last concerning the games, schools, customs, and manners of the children in India was valuable and most interesting. His kind heart was touched by the statement of the little miss that her teacher had licked her so hard that she almost broke her hand. As Vivekananda, like all monks, must travel over his land, preaching the religion of truth, chastity, and brotherhood of man, no great good could pass unnoticed or terrible wrong escape his eyes. He is extremely generous to all persons of other faiths and has only kind words for those who differ from them. Daily Gaze, September 5th, 1893. Raja Swami Vivekananda of India spoke at the East Church Sunday evening on the religion of India and poor of his native land. A good audience assembled, but it was not so large as the importance of the subject or the interesting speaker deserved. The monk was dressed in his native costume and spoke about 40 minutes. He and the rich spoke about 40 minutes. The great need of India today, which is not the India of 50 years ago. He said missionaries to educate the people industrially and socially and not religiously. The Hindus have all the religion they want, and the Hindu religion is the most ancient in the world. The monk is a very pleasant speaker and held the close attention of his audience. Daily Saratogian, September 6, 1893. The platform was next occupied by Swami Vivekananda, the monk of Madras, Hindustan, who preached throughout India. He, in the interest of social science and is an intelligent and interesting speaker. He spoke on Mohammedan's rule in India. The program from today embraces some very interesting topics, especially the paper on bimetallism by Colin Jacob Greene of Hartford. Vivekanand will again speak, this time on the use of silver in India. Next, Hindus at the fair. Boston Evening Transcript, September 30, 1893. Chicago, September 23. There is a room at the left of the entrance to the art place marked no number 1 kept out. To this, the speaker at the Congress of Religion or Repair sooner or later enter to talk with one another or with the President Bonney, whose private office is in one corner of the apartment. The folding doors are jealously guarded for the general public, usually standing far enough apart to allow peeping in. Only delegates are supposed to be penetrated the sacred precinct, but it is not impossible to obtain an open sesame and thus to enjoy a brief opportunity to closer relation with the distinguished guest than the platform in the Hall of Columbus affords. The most striking figure one meets in this after anteroom is Swami Vivekanand, the Brahmin monk. He is a large, well-built man with a superb carriage of the Hindustanist. His face clean shaved, squarely molded, regular featured, white teeth, and with well chiseled lips that are usually parted in the benevolent smile while he is conversing. His finely poised head is crowned with either a lemon-colored or red turban, and his cassock, not the technical name for his garment, belted in at the waist and falling below the knees, alternates in a orange, bright orange, and rich crimson. He speaks excellent English and replied readily to any question asked in sincerely. Along with his simplicity of manner, there is a touch of personal reserve when speaking to ladies, which suggests his chosen vocation. When questioned about the laws of his order, he has said, "I can do as I please. I am independent. Sometimes I live in the Himalayan mountains, sometimes on the street of the cities. I never know where I will get next meal. I never keep money with me. I come here by subscriptions." Then look around at one and two of his fellow countrymen who changed to be standing near his added, "They will take care of me," giving the inference that his board bill in Chicago is attended to by others. When asked if he was wearing his usual monk costume, he said, "This is a good dress. When I am home, I am in rugs and I go barefooted." Do I believe in caste? Caste is a social custom. Religion has nothing to do with it. All castes will associate with me. It is quite apparent, however, from the deportment, the general appearance of Mr. Vivekanand, that has we born among high caste, years of voluntary poverty and homeless wandering have not robbed him of his birthright of gentleman. Even his family name is unknown. He took that of Vivekanand in embracing a religious career, and Swami is merely the title of reverend accorded to him. He cannot be far along in the 30s. He cannot be far along in the 30s and looks as if made for this life and its fruition, as well as for meditation on the life beyond. One cannot help wondering what could have been the turning point with him. "Why should I marry?" was his abrupt response to the comment on all he had renounced is becoming a monk. "When I see in every woman only a divine mother, why do I make all this sacrifice? To emancipate myself from earthly ties and attachments so that there will be no rebirth for me. When I die, I want to become at once absorbed in the divine, one with God. I would be Buddha." Vivekananda does not mean by this that he is a Buddhist. No name or sect can label me. He is an outcome of the higher Brahmanism, a product of Hindu spirit, which is vast, dreamy, self extinguishing, a sannyasi or a holy man. He has some pamphlets that he distributes relating to his matter. Paramahamsa Ramakrishna, a Hindu devotee, who so impressed his hearers and pupils that many of them became ascetics after his death. Mozumdar also looked upon his saint as his master, but Mozumdar works for holiness in the world. It, but not of it, as Jesus taught. Vivekananda's address before the parliament was broad as the heaven above us, embracing the best in all religion, as the ultimate universal religion, charity of all mankind, good work for love of God, not for fear of punishment or hope of reward. He is the great favorite at the parliament, from the grandeur of his sentiment and his appearance as well. If he merely crosses the platform, he is applauded, and this marked approval of thousands he accepts in the childlike spirit of gratification, without a trace of conceit. It must be a strange experience too for this humble young Brahmin monk, this sudden transition from poverty and self effacement to influence and aggrandizement. When asked if he knew anything of those brothers in the Himalayas so firmly believed in by the theosophist, he answered with the simple statement, "I have never met one of them. as much as to simplify. There may be such person, but though I am at home in the Himalaya, I have yet to come across them. Next, at the Parliament of Religion, the Dubuque Loa Times, September 29, 1893. World's Fair September 29 special. The Parliament of Religion reached a point where sharp acerbites developed. The thin veil of the courtesy was maintained, of course, but behind it was a ill feeling. Reeve Joseph Cook criticized the Hindus sharply and was more sharply criticized in turn. He said that to speak of a universe that was not created is almost unpardonable nonsense, and the ascetic retorted that a universe which had a beginning is a self evident absurdity. Bishop J.P. Newman, firing at long range from the banks of the Ohio, declared that the Orientals have insulted all the Christians of the United States by their misrepresentation of the missionaries, and the Orientals, with their provoking calm and supercilious smile, replied that this was simply the bishop's ignorance. Buddhist philosophy. In response to the question directly, three learned Buddhists gave us, in remarkable plain and beautiful language, their bedrock belief about God, man, and matter. Following this is a summary of Dharmaphala paper on the world's depth of to Buddha, which he prefaced as we learn from another source by singing a singhasless song of benediction. This article then continues. His Dharmaphala peroration was as pretty a thing as a Chicago audience ever heard. Demosthenes never exceeded it. Cantankerous remark. Cantankerous remarks. Swami Vivekananda, the Hindu monk, was not so fortunate. He was out of humor, or soon became so, apparently. He wore an orange robe and a pale yellow turban and dashed at once into a savage attack on Christian nation in this verse. We who have come from the East have sat here day after day and have been told in a patronizing way that we ought to accept Christianity because Christian nations are the most prosperous. We look about us and we see England, the most prosperous Christian nation in the world, with her foot on the neck of 2 millions Asiatic, Asiatics. We look back into history and see that the prosperity of the Christian Europe began with Spain. Spain prosperity began with the invasion of Mexico. Christianity wins its prosperity by cutting the throat of its fellow man. At such a price, the Hindus will not have prosperity. And so they went on, each succeeding speaker getting more cantankerous as it were. Outlook Outlook, October 7, 1893. The subject of Christian work in India calls Vivekanand, in his brilliant bristly orange to his feet. He criticizes the work of Christian missionaries. It is evident that he has not tried to understand Christianity, but neither has he claims have its priests made an effort to understand his religion. With its ingrained faith and race prejudices of thousands of years standing, they have simply come, in his view, to throw scorn on his most sacred belief and to undermine the moral and spirituality of the people he has been set to teach. Critic, October 7, 1893. But the most impressive figure of the parliament were the Hindu priest H. Dharmaphala of Ceylon and the Hindu monk Swami Vivekanand. If theology and dogma stand in your way in search of truth, said the former but put them aside. Learn to think without prejudice, to love all being for love's sake, to express your conviction fearlessly, to lead a life of purity, and the sunshine of truth will illuminate you. But eloquent, eloquent as were many of the belief speeches at this meeting, whose triumphant enthusiasm rightly culminates in the superb rendering by the Apollo Club of the Hallelujah Chorus. No one expressed so well the spirit of Parliament, its limitations, and its finest influence as did the Hindu monk. I copy his address in full, but I can only suggest its effect upon the audience, for he is an orator by divine right, and his strong, intelligent face in its picturesque setting of yellow and orange was hardly less interesting than this earliest words and rich rhythmical utterance he gave them. After quoting the greater part of the Swamiji's final address, the article continues. Perhaps the most tangible result of the Congress was the feeling it aroused in regard to foreign missions. The impertinence of sending half-educated theological students to instruct the wise and erudite Orient- Orientals was never brought home to the English-speaking audience for more forcibly. It is only in the spirit of the tolerance and the sympathy that we are at liberty to touch their faith, and the exhorters who possesses these qualities are rare. It is necessary to realize that we have quite as much to learn from the Buddhists as they from us, and that only through the harmony can the highest influence be exerted. To the quest of New York World of October 1st, 1893, for a sentiment or expression regarding the significance of the great meeting. From each representative, Swamiji replied with the quotation from the Gita and one from Vyas. I am he that am in every religion, like the thread that passes through the strings of pearls. Holy, perfect, and pure men are seen in all creeds. Therefore, they all lead to the same truth. For how can nectar be the outcome of poison? Next, personal traits. Critic, October 7, 1893. It was an outgrowth of the Parliament of Religion, which opened our eyes to the fact that the philosophy of the ancient creeds contained much beauty for the moderns. When we had once clearly perceived this, our interest in their exponent quickened, and with characteristic eagerness we set out in pursuit of knowledge, the most available means of obtaining it after the close of the parliament was through the address and lectures Swami Vivekananda, who is still in this city, Chicago. His original purpose in coming to this country was to interest Americans in the starting of a new industrial among the Hindus, but he has abandoned this for the present because he finds that as the Americans are the most charitable people in the world. Every man with the purpose comes here for assistance in carrying it out. When asked about the relative condition of the poor here and in India, he replied that our poor would be princes there, and that he had been taken through the worst quarter of the city only to find it, from the standpoint of his knowledge, comfortable and even pleasant. A Brahmin of the Brahmins, Vivekananda gave up his rank to join the brotherhood of monk, where all pride of caste is voluntarily relinquished, and yet he bears the mark of race upon his person. His culture, his eloquency, and his fascinating personality have given us a new idea of Hindu civilization. He is an interesting figure. He is fine, intelligent, mobile face in its setting of yellow, and his deep musical voice proposes one at once in his favor. So it is not strange that he has been taken up by the literary club and has preached and lectured in the churches. Until the life of Buddha and the doctrine of his faith have grown familiar to us, he speaks without notes, presenting his facts and his conclusions with the greatest art, the most convincing sincerity, and rising at times to a rich, inspiring eloquency, has learnt and cultivated, apparently has the most accomplished Jesuits. He has also something Jesuitical in the character of his mind, but though the little sarcasm thrown into his discourse are as keen as a rapper, they are so delicate as to be lost on many of his hearers. Neither less his controversy is unfailing, for these truths are never pointed to directly at our customs has to be rude. At present he contents himself with enlightening us in regard to his religion and the words of his philosophy. He looks forward to the time when he shall pass beyond idolatry, now necessary in his opinion to the ignorant classes, beyond worship, even to the knowledge of the presence of the God in nature, of the divinity and the responsibility of man. Work out your own salvation, he says with the dying Buddha. I cannot help you. No man can help you. Help yourself. Lucy Moron. Reincarnation, Evanston Index, October 7, 1893. At the Congregational Church, during the past week, there have been given a course of lecture which in nature must resemble the religion's parliament which has just been completed. The lectures were Dr. Carlo von Bergen of Sweden and Swami Vivekananda, is Hindu monk. The Swami Vivekananda is a representative from India to the Parliament of Religion. He has attracted a great deal of attention on account of his unique attire in Mandarin color, by his magnetic presence, and by his brilliant oratory and wonderful exposition of Hindu philosophy. His stay in Chicago has been a continual ovation. The course of lectures was arranged to cover 3 evenings. The lecture of Saturday and Tuesday evening are listed without comment. Then the article continues. On Thursday evening, October 5th, Dr. von Bergen spoke on Hölderlin Beamish, the founder of the King's Daughter of Sweden, and the reincarnation was the subject treated by the Hindu monk. The latter was very interesting, the view being those that are not often heard in this part of the world. The doctrine of reincarnation of soul, while comparatively new and little understood in this country, is well known in the East, being the foundation of nearly all the religions of those people. That those that do not use it has dogma do not say anything against it. The main point to be decided is regard to the doctrine is as to whether we have had a past. We know that we have a present and feel sure of a future. Yet, how can there be a present without a past? Modern science has proved that a matter exists and continues to exist. Creation is merely a change in appearance. We are not we are not sprung out of nothing. Some regard God as the common cause of everything and judge this a sufficient reason for existence, but in everything we must consider the phenomena, whence and from what that springs. The same argument that proved there is a future proves that there is a past. It is necessary that there should be a cause, other causes, others than God's will. Heredity is not able to give sufficient cause. Some say that we are not conscious to the former existence. Many cases have been found where there are distinct reminiscences of the past. And here lies the germ of the theory. Because the Hindu is kind to dumb animals, many believe that we believe in the reincarnation of soul in lower orders. They are not able to conceive of kindness of dumb to dumb animals being other than the result of superstitions. An ancient Hindu priest defines religion as anything that lifts one up. Brutality is driven out. Humanity gives up to divinity. The theory of reincarnation does not confine man to this small earth. His soul can go to the other, higher earth where he will be laughter being, laughter being, possessing instead of five senses, eight and continuing in this way to will in this way he will be length approach the acme of perfection divinity and will be allowed to drink deep of the oblivions in the island of the blessed. Hindu civilization. Although the lecture at Stater on October 9th was well attended, the Stater Daily Free Press of October 9 ran the following somewhat diary review. The lecture of this celebrated Hindu at the Opera Hall or the Opera House Saturday night was very interesting. By comparative philosophy, he thought to establish the long admitted relationship between the Aryan race and their descendant in a new world. He mildly defined the caste system of India, which keeps three-fourths of the people in utter and illuminating subjection and boasting that the India of today was the same India that had watched for centuries the meteoric nations of the world flash across the horizon and sink into oblivion. In common with the people, he loves the past, he lives not for self, but for God. In his country, a premium is placed on beggary and tramps, through, though not so distinguished in his lecture. When the meal is prepared, they wait for some man to come along who is first served, then the animal, the servant, and the man of the house, and lastly the woman of the household. Boys are taken at 10 years of age and are kept by the professors for a period of 10 to 20 years, educated and sent home to resume their former occupation or to engage in the life of endless wandering, preaching and praying, taking along only that which is given them to eat and wear, but never touching money. Vivekananda is of a later class. Men approaching old age, withdrawn from the world, and after a period of study and prayer, when they feel themselves sanctified, they also go forward spreading the gospel. He observed that leisure was necessary for the intellectual development and scored Americans for not educating the Indians whom Columbus found in the state of savager, savagery savagery. In this, he exhibited a lack of knowledge of condition. His talk was lamentably short, and much was left unsaid to seeming greater importance than much that was said. His talk was lamentably short, and much was left unsaid of seeming greater importance than much that was said. An interesting lecture. Wisconsin State Journal, November 21st, 1893. The lecture at the Congregation Church, Madison, last night by the celebrated Hindu monk Vivekananda was an extremely interesting one and contained much of the sound philosophy and some good religion. Pagan though he be, Christianity may well follow many of his teachings. Pagan though he be, Christianity may well follow many of his teachings. His creed is as wide as the universe, taking in all religions and accepting truth wherever it may be found. Bigotry and superstitions, an ideal ceremony. Bigotry and superstition, an ideal ceremony, he declared, has no place in the religion of India.